As if giving birth to a child isn't challenging enough in itself, imagine trying to give birth while women who were supposed to help are shouting shame at you. That was one of the most disturbing scenes I've ever watched on TV. This entire episode was like torture for most of the characters. It was a difficult watch, but here we are. Let's discuss the episode and then look at the episode 7 trailer, which shows us that the next episode will mostly be about Brian and Ellen. Let's go. Mistress Porter. In last week's video, if you guys remember, I called Mistress Porter annoying because we all knew she did not give birth to Brian by willingly being with Lord Lovett. And this episode proved it with not only one but two unnecessarily violent scenes showing us how disgusting Simon Fraser was even in the past. Horrifying as they were, the scenes helped us understand what was going on in Porter's mind because I was struggling to understand why she was being so harsh to Julia. Well, it turns out that she was violated by Simon and she thought Julia wasn't. She assumed that Julia had slept with Simon willingly to make herself look pregnant by him, which is true. But the women who came to help thought Julia had been violated by Simon too, but Porter didn't want other women to falsely think that Julia had gone through the same things she had. Because of the pain she experienced, she didn't want Julia to fake that and garner undeserved empathy, if that makes sense. In her mind, she had a violent experience where she had no say, no freedom, no chance to run away, where she was threatened with death if she didn't comply. So thinking that Julia was with Simon willingly, seducing him in her words, was not something she could accept. Only when she realized why Julia had slept with Simon did she understand Julia did it for the baby. And as a mother too, she knew she would do anything to protect Brian, just as she had in the past, as we saw in one of the flashbacks. I was so glad that Mistress Porter had a change of heart because I wouldn't have been able to watch that birthing scene any longer if she hadn't. That Julia scene. It was disturbing, it was horrifying. Think about it. This woman hasn't seen the light of day ever since she arrived in the 18th century. The same goes for her husband, but just this scene alone in episode 6 was torture in itself. I know this episode will get a lot of criticism because when this show was first announced and we learned that Julia and Henry would be in it, nobody thought they would go through this much pain and torture. So I know there are a lot of fans, myself included, who hope this much pain is enough and Henry and Julia should finally meet. Although that will probably not happen until the last episode of the season. What did you think of that scene? I can't even describe it, but let me know your thoughts in the comments. Who is the child? Now, we know the child is a boy, but they didn't give us a name. During that Brian and Simon scene, they implied that the Lord would name the boy Simon, and we do know from Outlander that Lord Lovett has a son named Simon who is born after Brian. But Simon's mother is one of the Grants. We know that Lord Lovett marries Margaret Grant and has a few children with her. That hasn't happened yet in Blood of My Blood. So this young Simon Fraser that we saw in Outlander Season 1 is the child of Lord Lovett and Margaret Grant. I'm guessing that after Lord Lovett breaks the alliance between the Grants and the Mackenzies, he makes an alliance with the Grants through marriage, so Julia's child will not officially grow to be a Fraser. During a scene in the 20th century a few episodes ago, Julia and Henry were discussing what they would name their child if it were a boy or a girl. They said that if it were a girl, it would be Claire, and if it were a boy, it would be Peter. So there is a high chance this boy will be named Peter. That said, we have no idea what will happen to this character. We've had theories about this person being the grandparent of Fanny and Jane, but it's still too early to know whether that's 100% true. What do you think this boy will be named, and who will he turn out to be? Will he be someone we know from Outlander or someone we haven't heard of yet? I've seen theories about this child growing up to be Rob Cameron even. I don't think that's the case, but it's an interesting theory nonetheless. Henry's delusions. Now, I'm not a psychologist or anything, but to me it's obvious that Henry's suffering from PTSD and the delusions or psychosis that come with it. But I've never heard of delusions lasting this long. I know they can relive moments from their traumatic pasts and even enter into psychosis, but I'm not sure if it's possible for them to experience delusions as long as traveling and being with a woman. I don't know. But at least his delusions revealed one thing that has been bothering us viewers. There was a scene of Henry in the official Blood of My Blood trailer where he was running with a World War II memorial behind him. It had 1939 and 1945 written on it. So we were like, wait, does he travel back to the 20th century? But this episode showed that it was probably an editing mistake. Because in the Delusions scene, the dates are not in the memorial, so either they wanted us to go crazy with theories intentionally, or it was an editing mistake. The war Henry talks about ending is the First World War, and he doesn't really go to the future. At least we got that confirmed, right? Episode 7 trailer. Episode 7 is titled Luceo non Uro, which is the motto of Clan Mackenzie, meaning I shine, not burn. The trailer shows us that the reputation of Clan Mackenzie is on the verge of being ruined thanks to Simon Fraser, who made poor remarks about Ellen Mackenzie's purity, let's say. The trailer starts with Ellen and Brian holding each other. It looks like a sweet moment, but we know from the rest of the trailer that Ellen's brother Dougal sees them together and hits Brian. We finally see the confrontation between Brian and Myrta. You guys may argue in the comments saying Brian did not pursue Ellen and that they just magically fell in love. And it's true, they did fall in love at first glance. But that doesn't mean Brian didn't pursue her afterward, despite knowing that Myrta also had feelings for her. If there was some sort of bro code between them, Brian definitely betrayed that. And it's obvious from the trailer that Myrta sees it that way as well. Henry's talking to the brothel worker. Obviously, he still thinks Julia and the child are both dead, so he's trying to figure out what to do next. I mean, there's no reason for him to stay in the past now, so he'll probably think of a way to go back to the 20th century to Claire. But will he be able to do that? We see Julia in a pretty dress with a baby, and Henry, unaware that his wife and child are alive, travels to the stones in the hopes of time traveling. But Archbug and the other Grant men prevent him from doing that. In the rest of the trailer, there are a few scenes I don't fully understand. Ellen has attended a meeting in town, but she says to Dougal that he shouldn't be there. Yet Dougal has come to take her out. I'm guessing this meeting is about the events that will lead to the Jacobite Rebellion of 1715, which is quite soon timeline-wise in the show. And we know the show will tackle that rebellion. We know from the official Blood of My Blood trailer that guns will explode during the meeting, with British soldiers breaking into this probably secret meeting, and everyone will have to run away, including Ellen. So as someone interested in political matters, thanks to her father, Ellen either goes there on her own to learn about the plans, or she knows that Brian will be there and takes that as an opportunity to see him. That ends up being a disaster because, like I said, Dougal sees them together and hits Brian. We also learned that Simon Fraser has been successful in making people think Ellen Mackenzie is not virtuous. Ellen tries to convince her brothers that it's not true, but this also means the Grants have probably heard about it, so they will want to keep the alliance going. The rest of the trailer shows us a few different scenes. Simon Fraser, Henry running away, Brian drawing his sword, and Julia reading a letter. Some of you theorized in my comment section that Julia would somehow find a letter written by Henry. Now that she's closer to Simon Fraser, she could have the chance to see the letters arriving for him. Perhaps she'll read one and realize Henry is still alive in the past and working for the Grants. Then she could use that information to find Henry, thanks to Brian's help. What do you think? If you want to hear some of my Outlander Season 8 theories, check out this video.